What if Plo Koon found Anakin on Tatooine? Let's start today's story on Tatooine, where we find Plo Koon roaming the Dune Seas after landing his Republic starship on the outskirts of Mos Espa. The Jedi Master is investigating the mysterious disappearance of former Jedi qui-gon. He visits his last known position on the planet, discovering journals and sketches pointing towards a Force-sensitive child, suggesting that this went deeper than just a Jedi Master gone missing. As Plo delves further, he follows the trail of drawings until he is at a pawn shop in the desert. Entering, he meets a boy named Anakin Skywalker, who shakes his hand. Immediately, the sands around Anakin and Plo are lifted into the air, and they both become very confused. This was unlike anything Plo Koon had ever experienced before. The Force is heavily involved in this, and his senses brought him to this boy. Plo introduces himself to Anakin as a Jedi Master. Anakin finds this awesome, having always admired the Jedi and even desiring to be one. But when Plo takes a midichlorian test and discovers that Anakin has over 20,000 midichlorians in his system, he wonders if the journals and sketches of qui-gon were actually about the Chosen One prophecy. Plo tells Anakin he wants to take him back to Coruscant to meet with the Jedi Council. This was certainly a unique situation. Anakin was 9 years old and already had developed attachments, namely with his mother, but he had friends on Tatooine as well. Skywalker didn't want to leave his mother. She was the only person he had in his life. He asked Plo if his mother can come with them. At first, Plo said no. That wasn't the Jedi way. Jedi are taken from their kin and trained to become void of attachments. But as Plo thought about this unique situation, he understood that not taking Shmi with them could possibly do more harm than good. This is because Anakin has already developed an attachment, and stripping him away from that could foster resentment, anger, and sadness, all traits of the dark side. Therefore, Plo grants Anakin this wish, and his mother joins them. Hey guys, please check out our Christmas sale at Fantasy Sabers, where we are offering a 15% discount on all sabers. Back to the video. The council were even more unsure than Plo, though unlike in The Phantom Menace, they respected Plo Koon's word more than Qui-Gon's. The Jedi Master was on the council, and by rule of hierarchy, his word held more weight than Jin's. The council eventually agrees, and Anakin and his mother could remain on Coruscant, and Plo Koon undertakes the training of Anakin Skywalker. Anakin's training is very different to the original timeline, since his mother is on Coruscant as well. Usually in Jedi training, younglings and Padawans live at the Jedi Temple. They are assigned quarters where they reside, and then go to their classes as normal. It is very uncommon for a Jedi to not live at the temple, especially during their formative years, training in the arts of the Force. Thus, when Anakin began living at home with Shmi and making the commute every day for classes, it was very strange. Plo Koon would often have dinner with the Skywalkers. For Plo, he didn't really know how to approach having Shmi here. He was hundreds of years old and had experienced most of life in the Jedi Temple. But this was unique. Through having dinner with the Skywalkers, Plo and Shmi become close friends, and this helped the Jedi Master understand Anakin more. As for Anakin's training, he developed very quickly under Plo's teachings. What began with no knowledge of the Force quickly expanded to a boy who knew how to defend himself, a Padawan who could defend others, and a knight who could battle against Jedi and defend them. Anakin was extremely gifted, and this quality revealed itself quickly in Anakin's training. He took control over Force abilities very swiftly, floating objects and tuning his senses within the first few months of his training. What surprised Plo and the council was that Anakin's greatest weakness came in his lightsaber fighting. He was slow, arrogant, and made mistakes often. It is almost like he thought that because his Force abilities were greater than anyone else, his lightsaber skills would be too. Therefore, Plo took great care in developing Anakin's lightsaber training. Plo Koon is a Kel Dor who was born on the planet Doran and was brought into the Jedi Order at a young age and trained to become a Jedi. His master was called Tyvoka and was highly respected in the Jedi Order, which Plo Koon later became. He is extremely powerful in lightsaber combat and isn't given enough praise for how powerful of a Jedi he is. It is said that Plo Koon is one of the only Jedi to be able to defeat Yoda in a lightsaber battle. He instructed Anakin in Form 5, the same lightsaber form that Plo used. This was the way of the Krayt Dragon, developed by practitioners of Form 3, who felt as though they were being too defensive and needed to be more aggressive while keeping a strong foot on protection. Anakin excelled at this, and when Plo specifically taught Skywalker the nuances of this style, he became extremely powerful. He received a blue kyber crystal on Ilum, symbolizing his connection to Anakin's fighting and aggressive prowess. Anakin's powers only developed under Plo's teachings, making him extremely powerful. Due to Plo Koon's wise and experienced life, he was able to teach Anakin more advanced techniques and better his abilities compared to Obi-Wan. This made Anakin more powerful than he was when he was trained under Obi-Wan in the original timeline. By the time of Attack of the Clones, Anakin would still fall in love with Padme when he was protecting her on Naboo. Plo hadn't taught him to thwart all attachments and become void of love. In fact, it was quite the opposite, and his love towards his mother was encouraged, and so when he spent time around Padme, his first Jedi instincts weren't to cast it aside like it meant nothing. After the Battle of Geonosis, Anakin would return to Coruscant. Due to Anakin's alternative training, he would react to the situation differently. He ultimately makes the decision to tell his master, and Plo learns about Anakin's feelings for Padme. Plo was stoic and thankful that Anakin had come to him with this information. The reason he came to Plo instead of keeping it a secret like the original timeline is simply because it wasn't drilled into his mind by Plo that attachments were evil. Although the code still prohibited attachments, Anakin was clearly different, and his mother being with them on Coruscant exemplified this difference. Plo advises Anakin to both walk away from Padme and focus on his life as a Jedi, but also to tell the Jedi Council as they will offer the best guidance. Anakin was unsure, but he trusted the belief of his master over anyone. Anakin stands before the Jedi Council on Coruscant and admits that he has fallen in love with Senator Padme Amidala, leaving the room in stunned silence. Plo Koon breaks the tension, explaining that Anakin has come seeking guidance, not to defy the Jedi Code, and reminding the Council that love itself is not forbidden. It is a human quality. He emphasizes that by being open and honest, Anakin has demonstrated strength and commitment to the Jedi. Other council members share their own struggles with love and doubt, recounting how they overcame these emotions to remain true to the Jedi path and maintain peace in the galaxy. Inspired by their stories, Anakin's resolve to follow their example, understanding that sacrifice is necessary for balance. Yoda praises Plo Koon for his guidance and announces that Anakin will begin private training sessions with him and Plo to nurture his emotions and solidify his dedication to the Jedi. This, Yoda declares, will be Anakin's Jedi trial. And so, in the private sessions with Yoda and Plo, Anakin delved into the Jedi Code, focusing on understanding his emotions and learning to control them rather than suppressing them. Yoda introduced him to meditation techniques, such as imagining himself as a tree with deep, unshakable roots, or a river that let turbulent feelings flow away without resistance. These exercises helped Anakin stay calm and present, even in moments of frustration. Plo Koon complemented this by guiding Anakin through slow, deliberate lightsaber forms, emphasizing precision and mindfulness over power and speed, which taught him to channel his emotions constructively. To deepen his growth, they put him through challenging scenarios, including holographic simulations where he had to make difficult decisions under pressure, like saving civilians during staged disasters, forcing him to balance logic with compassion. They also set up sparring matches where his opponents tried to provoke him, training him to remain composed and focused. Anakin's mother, who lived with them on Coruscant, became an important part of his development. Instead of being a distraction, her presence helped him practice emotional control by showing him how to care deeply without letting fear or attachment cloud his judgment. Spending time with her reminded him of his humanity, grounding him and giving him a sense of purpose that strengthened his commitment to the Jedi path. These teachings helped Anakin see that his emotions weren't enemies, but tools he could use to grow stronger. By combining these lessons with his personal connections, Anakin began to find balance, turning his feelings into sources of strength rather than vulnerability, and taking a critical step towards becoming more centered and a compassionate Jedi. Thus, as the Clone Wars began, Anakin becomes Ahsoka's master. Under Anakin's tutelage, the Togruta Jedi became far more powerful. As for Palpatine, he was furious and he knew he had to change tactics. At first, when Shmi accompanied the boy to Coruscant, he knew he could use it to his advantage and continue to manipulate the boy. The fact that Plo was training Anakin almost didn't matter because Shmi changed everything. Anakin had an attachment, and that meant something for Sidious to play with. But when Anakin had his private lessons with Yoda and Plo, any possibility then turning Anakin evil was gone. This would have been a safer way to do it, through careful manipulation and then finally revealing himself at the last moment. But just because it was safer didn't mean it was the only way. Strap in everybody, cause this is where the story officially changes and becomes absolutely terrible for Anakin. One night, when Anakin, Plo, and Ahsoka are away at the Outer Rim sieges, Palpatine sneaks into Shmi's apartment and locates her in the dining room. Revealing himself, Shmi jumps, startled at the intrusion. She picks up a lit candle, reaching for anything that could defend herself. But Palpatine was a Sith Lord. He raised his hand and called Shmi towards him before igniting his crimson blade through her chest. Shmi Skywalker was dead. As the golden sun rose the following morning, her body would be found. The council debated what to do. She was killed by a lightsaber, and it was clear that someone was trying to get through to Anakin. Skywalker and his master were called back to Coruscant, and Ahsoka remained in battle with the 501st and 104th Battalion. Anakin is absolutely distraught and mourns the loss of his mother. Guilt trickles over him like a violent storm, and he tries to understand how this could have happened. She was killed by a lightsaber. It had to have been the Sith Lord. Sidious was toying with him, playing with him like it meant nothing. Anakin's anger surged. It was his fault. If only he hadn't begged her to come to Coruscant with him all those years ago, she would still be safe on Tatooine. Plo sensed his apprentice's inner turmoil and tried to calm him, but at this point, in the direct thick of grief, Anakin is beyond reason and he is demanding to be sent after the person who killed his mother. His emotions are running wild and his control over the Force that he had fought so hard to control under Plo and Yoda's training was beginning to slip. Anakin confronts the Jedi Council, desperate for answers. He stands in the center of the circular arena and accuses them of not doing enough to protect his mother, believing they had failed him. Realistically, he had no grounds to say this. For once, this wasn't the council's fault, but Anakin was angry and wanted answers. He storms out of the room, anger dripping from his being. He will avenge her. The council was shocked at Anakin's outburst and were divided about what to do next. Some Jedi, like Mace Windu, argued that Anakin is just upset at his mother's death, and they should focus on the larger war, not paying much attention to Skywalker. Some Jedi nod in agreement, but Plo absolutely disagrees, saying that Anakin's grief must be dealt with and that the Sith Lord is clearly trying to reach him. Master Plo was annoyed after the session and knew that he had to keep an eye on Anakin. Anakin begins investigating the clues around Shmi's death, looking for any lead that could point to the killer. This was working in Palpatine's favor, and he knew that now he could reveal himself to Anakin to turn himself to the dark side. Palpatine would plant evidence at Shmi's death for Anakin to find, which points Anakin back to his home world of Tatooine. He finds sand and old toys from his home on the desert sea. Later that night, Anakin has a vision, which he believes to be a premonition of his Force powers, which shows his old home on Tatooine. Anakin leaves at once. Plo sensed the danger of Anakin's descent into anger and decided to follow him discreetly, in case he was doing anything bad. Anakin followed his senses to Tatooine, his home world. He struggled to believe that his mother was dead. He hadn't returned to Mos Espa in over a decade, but as he arrived, he realized it was the same place that he had left almost a decade ago. Still corrupted by the Hutts and plagued with slavery. Wandering through the town, he walked at a fast pace to make it to his old home before nightfall. When the home came into view, he saw a dark figure enter, enticing Anakin to follow. This was it, Sidious. Rushing inside, he locates Sidious standing in Shmi's old room, and Anakin's rage and anger gets the better of him. Skywalker ignites his sapphire blade and tells the Dark Lord he will pay for what he has done. Cackling and laughter embellished the Sith Lord, and he coerced Anakin to use his hate to focus it. It makes him more powerful. Anakin lunges forward and begins striking at Sidious, using his Form 5 fighting style that Plo instructed him in to duel. Anakin's raw strength and hate allowed him to gain the upper hand early in the duel, but this was all a ploy by Palpatine. He was edging Anakin on, trying to call the darkness out of him. He taunts his mother as they fight, detailing her death, her screaming. Anakin allowed his emotions to take over, and he showed no defensive abilities at all, fighting with only aggression. This allowed Sidious to finally make his move, and he knocked Anakin to the floor. As he stood over the fallen Chosen One, Plo Koon finally arrives, running into Shmi's room and blasting electrical judgment at Sidious, causing the Dark Lord to quickly react with Sith lightning of his own. This allowed Anakin to get back to his feet and stare at his master. Plo tells Anakin to calm himself, to find balance and not use his anger as his source of power. Anakin returned, exclaiming that this man murdered his mother and he will pay for it. Plo agreed, but said that murder is not justice and that he is only descending into his manipulations. He is acting exactly as Sidious wants. As this began to get through to Anakin, Plo asked his apprentice whether or not Shmi would want this. Would she want revenge on her behalf, or would she want her son to do the right thing and bring the man to justice with morals and how a Jedi would? The sappy talk was agonizing in Palpatine's mind, and he swung his blade back at the Jedi. But Plo had done enough, and his apprentice was back on his side. Together, they fought Palpatine, and Plo continued to tell Anakin to remember his training with him and Yoda to find balance and use that balance for good. Anakin and Plo's combo was deadly, with Anakin using raw strength to fight Sidious, while Plo remained on the outside and attacked with electrical judgment, causing Sidious to fall off his line. This would be the difference, and as Palpatine tried to hit Plo with a fatal strike, he missed, and Anakin ducked under his blade and stabbed the Dark Lord through his abdomen, and the Sith Lord fell to the desert floor, dead. What shocked the Jedi was revealing his hood to expose a dead Chancellor Palpatine. Anakin and Plo Koon return to Coruscant and tell the Council that Sidious is dead and his true identity as Palpatine. The Senate would have to accept this loss and his manipulation over the last decade and focus on striving for a better future. The following months after his death would see the Separatists fall into disarray. The Jedi Order began campaigns focused on tracking down Separatist leaders, killing Nute Gunray, Wat Tambor, and arresting Poggle the Lesser and Poe Nudo. 7 months after Palpatine's death, the Separatists mounted a final stand on Mygeeto, with San Hill being the final Separatist leader and Count Dooku leading the droid army. As dozens of Jedi joined the attack, a massive battle ensued. This saw the central city of Mygeeto turn into a battlefield and hundreds of thousands of droids destroyed. San Hill would be murdered in his throne room, and after a final showdown against Count Dooku, where the Sith Lord had to fight the entire Jedi Council, he was killed. Thus, the Republic officially won the Clone Wars. Following this battle, Anakin became a Jedi Master at age 21 and joined the Jedi Council shortly after. Anakin's once girlfriend, Padme Amidala, would become the next Supreme Chancellor, and the Chosen One would be forced to work with her again. But after even more training from the Grand Master and Plo Koon, he was able to control his emotions. He felt his attachment and knew he had feelings for her, but that's where it stopped. Plo Koon was the perfect master for Anakin, and his encouragement and sheer belief in his apprentice's training allowed Anakin to grow into a powerful Jedi Master. After the Battle of Magneto, Plo even began teaching Anakin the ability of electrical judgment, and Anakin grew very fond of its power. He lived on for his mother and acted in ways he knew she would be proud of him. Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, Jedi Master and member of the High Jedi Council, had completed the prophecy and brought balance to the Force, all with the help of his master, Plo Koon. There would be peace, prosperity and stability for the rest of time. If you enjoyed today's video, you must watch What If Anakin Went to Utapau and What If Anakin Never Went to Mustafar. Please check out our saber shop, Fantasy Sabers, for the largest collection of replicas, Padawan sabers and more. The link is first in the description. Thank you all for watching and may the Force be with you.